Woo, we are live. Every time it shocks me. I'm always looking for it. What's up, wrestling fans? I'm Doug. That's Kevin. We're the Two Bros Wrestling Show coming at you live in living color, but not with living color because we
And
can't afford them.
on the road to WrestleMania.
Yes,
Officially, we are on the road
officially
to
it has
WrestleMania,
it has begun.
which is what our main event topic is tonight, fans. We are going to be talking everything about last night's premium live event that kicks off the road to WrestleMania. Winners, losers, moments, feuds that are coming out of the Rumble, as well as what we liked and what we didn't like. But Doug, it would be great if we could just talk Royal Rumble, but my goodness.
I think the news is demanding that we pay attention to it tonight, Kevin. I prefer when we just do a straight up pay-per-view review and just hit the pay-per-view for an hour, but I guess I'm feeling you're going to talk about some pretty heavy stuff tonight, man.
Well, I actually there's so much news coming out of this week. We truly have four stories that legitimately could be a story of the week on any given week. And a few of these are, I'm pretty sure, going to be stories of the year when we look back. That's how much news came out of WWE this week.
My wife earlier said, "Hey, you guys are doing your show tonight, right? Because I'm sure you have a lot to talk about." I'm like, you are very right, but everything we have to talk about tonight could be a show of its own. I'm pretty sure.
And I have a feeling they will be, because much of what we're talking about is going to require follow-up from us and for us all to keep our eyes on. Doug, I might shelve even some of this news for our next show because I have got a lot on free agent news and things like that. Let's see how much we can get through. We're going to hit the big ones tonight, though. I want to start on the positive side.
Let's do that.
Because I honestly think that when all is said and done and you look back on this period in time, this will be the one that is more remembered as being a huge wrestling news story that is probably going to be the biggest of this year. And that is, for the first time in 31 years, Monday Night Raw will be leaving linear television. The blockbuster announced, it was Tuesday, that was announced that beginning in 2025, Monday Night Raw is going to be moving to Netflix. So Raw and chill, I guess, is what we're going to do. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Why?
I had to. We're going to get dark later, so let's be goofy now.
Yeah.
One of TV's longest running weekly programs, Raw, is going to leave traditional TV to become Netflix first weekly live programming. The 10-year deal is valued at more than $5 billion. The Netflix deal represents a seismic shift in the entertainment industry as it continues its transition from linear TV to streaming. Netflix offers WWE global reach. And this deal, not in the USA, but in the rest, and most of the rest of the world, this Netflix deal also includes not just being the home of Raw, but also being the home of SmackDown, NXT, the WWE premium live events. Peacock has those PLE rights until 2026 and here in the US, but Doug, I don't know about you, but I would not be a bit surprised once that deal is over with that everything goes in-house for Netflix.
I can see it going in-house to Netflix. Did you read this wacky Netflix option that they have? I've seen it show up a couple of times where Netflix has a 5-year. Once they get to year 5, they can go ahead and extend or terminate. So we could technically have Raw on Netflix for 5 to 20 years.
To 20 years. And obviously, I mean, Netflix is offering not just the money, but it offers international exposure for WWE in markets that they would have to, come up with their own deals, find a way to get in. And now you have global reach from the industry leader in streaming. As far as the premium live events and things go, I mean, it just makes sense to eventually bring all that together in-house. There's also a prestige factor from WWE's point of view. They get to be, I mean, Netflix is the industry leader when it comes to streaming. And Raw gets to be the very first foray on Netflix to go into weekly live programming. Netflix reported this week its strongest subscriber growth numbers since the very beginning of the pandemic. And it's just sort of a reminder to investors why they are the number one streaming service. And it should be noted, currently the only profitable
Right.
streaming service. They have gotten really good at retaining subscribers and avoiding the cancellation and churn that tends to hit all of the other streamers in the industry. So this is probably the best possible scenario for Raw and WWE. It was sort of the last domino to fall in WWE's TV right agreements. And just so for a quick recap, if for those keeping track at home, that means Raw will be leaving USA to go to Netflix. Yes. SmackDown will be leaving Fox to go to USA. NXT will be leaving USA to go to the CW. So your move, Tony Khan. The AEW rights deals are still out there. Even some rumors considering that they're going, they're looking at a hybrid broadcast / streaming model. But once AEW's streaming rights are settled, Doug, you said it early in the show, this could be a show all of its own. It's going to be. So we're going to let you know as soon as we get the AEW stuff nailed down. We will do an entire show on what all this means, where all your favorite wrestling shows are going, so that you can keep up with it. But this is really, Doug, this is a complete new landscape for wrestling viewing. And this is really a look at the future as to I think how it's all going to be in the end. If this is not a sign that this is the true death of linear television, the longest running episodic television show in history, as they always like to refer to it, has decided to leave linear television. Doug, I know we'll have to do a full show with hot takes. What do you think about all this? Good thing, bad thing?
It's a brave new world. I'm really curious to see how this is going to play out. I don't think that Netflix has really ever dropped anything like this or done anything like this where we're going to get, I mean, they first, start the model with, we're going to drop an entire series all at once, which, gave us, the whole concept of, binge watching. And now they're moving to a new model where they're going to have legit episodic television on their platform, which is again a new model for them. Disney's doing it now, HBO or Max or whatever it's called, but they still have like the linear television model too. But this is, I don't know, it's a brave new world, and I'm curious to see how this works out.
I mean, for WWE to be able to say you're the first to be a partner with the industry leader, I have to think this is good for them. And my hot take, honestly, it's good for AEW because, now that we know where all of Raw programming is going, anyone that wants in the wrestling business now is going to have to go to AEW. Before, even AEW's current partner was considered possibly trying to woo WWE. So it was a real risk out there for Tony Khan that he could have been left empty-handed. Now he has the deal and the partnership and the relationship he currently has, plus the ability to negotiate up if he wants to with someone who wants to come offer more money. Until that Raw deal was signed, Tony was kind of probably going to have a hard time getting any return calls, as everyone was probably waiting to see how Raw played out.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of a hurry up and wait. But now that waiting is over, so let's make some moves, Tony.
Let's make some moves. Got, like I said, an entire show forthcoming on this whole topic. Speaking of, and I already have it on our agenda to talk about in March, because I figure that by that time we'll know how this is going to affect Mania season. The other top story of the week, we are reporting on the demise of Vincent Kennedy McMahon for like the 10th time now, I believe.
What this cat literally has 9 lives, but this might
be the one.
Yeah,
this might be the one. Friday night saw the man who shaped modern wrestling once again step away from his company as he resigned from WWE and from the TKO board. Despite having returned last year with a deal in place that basically said, you can't get rid of me unless I'm incapacitated, I die, or I resign. And I have to imagine that because he resigned, the pressure from inside was so great that Vince himself realized that there was no way to weather this storm while sitting at the boardroom along with his TKO compadres, who quite honestly have been distancing themselves from Vince McMahon, and both comments they're making to CNN, to the Wall Street Journal. You could say they've been distancing themselves and preparing for this for some time. We knew that from some of their regulatory filings that they had the whole Vince thing as a potential risk. But in case you have been under a rock, this resignation is coming a day after a lawsuit, which was filed by Janelle Grant, who worked at WWE headquarters, accusing Vince McMahon of sexual assault, sex trafficking, and physical abuse. That's right, trafficking. The disturbing allegations included Vince requiring sexual favors from Grant in order to advance her career, eventually leading to the chairman allegedly passing Grant around to please his friends, thus the trafficking charge. That includes, mentioned by name, former head of talent relations John Laurinaitis, who had previously been forced out in disgrace last year when the original series of allegations from various men were investigated internally by WWE. A former UFC world champ was also mentioned in the filing, just not by name. Yeah, let's speculate on who that could possibly be.
Yeah.
When I say these allegations are disturbing, if you have not read it, as if abuse and trafficking weren't disturbing in and of themselves, one descriptive portion of the lawsuit detailed an alleged encounter where Grant was forced to continue servicing one of Vince's friends while the chairman, and there's no real polite way to say this, defecated on her head. Something I never thought I'd be saying on this show. Again, allegations, but apparently these were sort of the allegations that started that internal investigation to begin with. Reportedly, Grant was one of those who had received money, or I guess a non-disclosure agreement that was in place for $3 million, of which Vince apparently decided to stop paying. So after $1 million, he stopped paying. So she says the non-disclosure is null and void, and off to court we go.
Yeah.
So Doug, the resignation isn't the end. Obviously, we are going to have more on this. There's the lawsuit that we'll have to continue to follow, as well as the separate case that the federal government is reportedly building against Vince as this situation develops. For now, Doug, I think it's safe to say that the TKO executives have to be just like praying that Vince McMahon dies of old age, and so that his baggage dies with him.
But how many more things are going to come out of the woodwork? I mean, because this isn't just a suit against Vince and Laurinaitis. This is also against WWE for letting this happen while she was employed there, the way I'm understanding it. So it's just terrible all the way around. I mean, even if none of those allegations, if those allegations are proven false, yeah, I think the one thing there that does exist, and it's like etched in stone, and I've seen a couple of folks talk about this online too, is the text messages exist. Those are real, and those have a lot of damning evidence in just them. This
did come up last night during the post Royal Rumble press conference.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
And Cody Rhodes actually sort of addressed it head on when asked. Triple H, as one might expect, considering it's not just business, it's family. Did not. He deflected all of try to focus on the positive. Not going to talk about that sort of thing. Claims that he has not read the lawsuit and the like. Cody again more forthcoming, saying that the boys and girls in the back were finding out in real time, just like everyone else, and they were determined to put on a show that brought smiles to people's faces when there's a dark cloud otherwise, because what else can they do? Again, I understand that part of it. A lot of them weren't even around during the Vince era.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
What can you do but go on and do your job? But there was a lot of questions about the safety of employees and how they're going to handle that moving forward. What safeguards are being put into place and things. So and what otherwise was a really positive news week for WWE, boom, here comes this real dark cloud that kind of took over the conversation.
It's terrible. It just really is. Terrible. I mean, we'll talk more about this later. I'm sure this is a show into itself. It's
and you're right. I think that there's a lot more that's probably going to come out. And if this is my gosh, if this is the tip of the iceberg, what more is going to be revealed? in this. I mean, what more could be revealed that would be as disturbing as what we've already learned?
Uh,
Yeah.
I can't. I can't even right now.
Moving on, right?
Oh,
Uh,
so
and
yeah, absolutely.
And what's hard to believe is only the third biggest story of the week. The Rock isn't yet head of the table, but he now has a seat at the table of WWE's leadership. That's right. The Rock has been named to the TKO board. Here, there's an opening now, by the way. Just sorry. In required regulatory filing, it was revealed that this immediate appointment also means $30 million in stock options paid to The Rock in order to promote the brand. Needless to say, even more so than the promo that he cut a couple of weeks ago. If you don't think that now he will be facing Roman Reigns at some point in time, there's a financial interest in doing so for The Rock for sure. And he owns the rights to The Rock. Apparently, he did not own his name, but the trademark came along with his board appointment. So, all in all, a good week for Dwayne Johnson.
So, overall, a positive week for wrestling fans. And overall, I mean, this is great news for Raw. It's great news for WWE. It's great news for really, like you said, AEW, because now we can get on with, Tony finding, future homes for his product. It's a great news for, it sounds like, if allegations are even remotely true, that WWE is a safer place now, for employees. And, The Rock's got his name. So
it's all in all, despite one large dark cloud,
right.
Most of the week was good news. Maybe not so much for Kevin Patrick, because that was that would have been my other on any given week. That would have been a top news story. But a shakeup that we kind of saw coming to the SmackDown announce desk. Patrick has been dismissed as SmackDown's lead announcer. He had moved to SmackDown following last August's shakeup that switched him from Raw. But in doing so, they made him work with a three-man team, hoping that he would improve under the tutelage of Michael Cole. Michael Cole went back to Raw full-time, and they'd hoped that Patrick would up his game and improve. But apparently, at least to the decision makers and the powers that be, that didn't happen. No word yet on who the permanent replacement will be. Michael Cole filled in, obviously, in town for the Rumble, so he filled in on Friday. Will be interesting to see who mans that desk this next Friday.
Yeah, it will.
And I'm leaving most of this news for the next time. I will end on one last bit. In the wake of all the big news WWE made this week, I want to get one AEW story in there. And it's not necessarily a great story, and that it's a worrisome story for AEW. Soft ticket sales have begun to plague the Federation last year, especially in towns that AEW had previously visited. But when what was once worrisome kind of looks like an all red flag warning WCW end era like numbers. We're talking like 2,000 or so tickets sold in some of the cities they're visiting now. Looking ahead at the next few weeks, they're playing some markets that they barely sold 1,000 tickets. It was pretty quiet in that building if you watched Dynamite on Wednesday night. I mean, even though it looked okay because of how dark they kept the arena, you could tell from the sound there was not a lot of people in that hall.
Yeah, that's not good. Apparently, the TV numbers are okay. It's the problem with the live events and getting people out to those events that I've already read that they're planning to try and course correct by going to bigger markets and more friendly markets to try and get those numbers up, and staying away from Shreveport or I hate to say it, but probably Charleston, West Virginia. Although I
saw like one of the future ones that they're worried about is like Henderson, Texas.
Right. Yeah.
Not Houston, not Dallas, not. I mean, and I get it. They played the big markets so often that they probably thought they could hit the smaller ones. But
yeah,
we're going to have a whole show on this. Really, we'll tell you more about that by the end of tonight. We got an upcoming fix for Tony Khan. No charge.
No charge.
With that, Doug,
let's get to the main event, man.
Let's get out of the real world and into our fantasy world of professional wrestling and talk about the fun side and not all the dark sides of things. Royal Rumble, man. I have been very much, I think, forthright on this show that Rumble is one of my absolute favorite
Yeah,
events
me
of the
too.
year. If you haven't watched, fans, we have in the archives just 2 shows ago, we did an entire show on the history of the Royal Rumble, including what makes that Rumble so much better than your average battle royal, what
Mhm.
makes a good Rumble. And we mentioned, we pointed out things like pacing and
Mhm.
surprises
Yep.
and, everything, the storylines, that the moments that make it up. And we also said that, to be quite frank about it, there's not necessarily a lot of great bell to bell rumbles. There's not a
Right.
lot of like total disasters. And for the most part, because you have to go an hour ish, you're going to get a mix of all of that. So most really fall somewhere in between. Before we get into spoilers or going chronologically through these moments, and because that's what I want. I want to talk our surprises and moments before we even get to our winners. But for those who don't want spoilers, who maybe haven't heard yet and are watching us, I would say that our prediction from a couple of weeks ago about how most fall somewhere in the middle. To me, both of these fell somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I think, when you have that many moving parts, especially when, that ring is incredibly full, it's gonna just get a little clunky because at the end of the day, it has its DNA from a battle royal, which,
Yeah. Yeah.
we've, but, I think overall from show wise, from bell to bell, from, opening event to main event, I would have to give it, two thumbs up. Yeah,
I
and
mean, you have to. Yeah, there was nothing that was offensive to the point of, like, there was definitely
right.
some clunkiness and some
Sure.
slow moments,
Yep.
and it will not be remembered. I don't think for like a bell to bell great
Mm,
Royal Rumble.
no.
They were solid B's in my mind. So, and it's the
Yeah,
road to
I agree with
WrestleMania.
that. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so with that, we will dip into the spoilers, Doug.
Let's
We're
do it.
talking women's Rumble first up. As soon as the women's Rumble opened, I said, well, that means that The Rock is coming in our main event.
I almost texted you right then when the women's rumble opened up. I was about to text you and say, well, okay, well, we know who's winning the rumble. We know who's number 30.
And we will get into that, but spoiler, now that we are into spoilers, The Rock doesn't show up.
No, he does not.
Doug, this women's rumble, before we even get into who opened and all that, as soon as they announced it, they announced that, and they mentioned this multiple times, that the winner will main event WrestleMania. Did you? I know that WWE plays fast and loose with main
What I
events,
mean, event is, yeah.
but do you feel that that means that it's truly going to be one night the women headline and one night the men? In the past, that had been the case. Last year, not so much, but
I would like to see that, but again, they do play fast and loose. Just ask CM Punk. He's done a whole, like, hour or two on main eventing and what that means to him and Triple H. But you know, what is the main event according to WWE?
the last
Because
3 hours of the show,
right, because to me,
hang
and
on
I'm
for the last 3 hours.
I don't agree with CM Punk on a lot of things right now, but the main event is the one that goes the match that goes on last to me, and I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of wrestling fans see that as. Yeah, see, there
There's
we
your
go.
thumbs up.
There's this thumbs up, but. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see is all I got to say about that because I would love to see the women's show headline, and be
Yeah.
that last match of one of the nights. I don't know if it will be though.
They did not waste any time getting into the, again, what are Rumble matches based upon? Surprises, returns, all these things we talked about. Natty was number one, but really the first two it takes to start a Rumble. And number two, right out the gate, came Naomi, who got
Yeah,
a great reaction.
yeah,
I
she
will
did.
say
Love
she
that.
got a great reaction. Pleasantly surprised to hear them talk about her time away as well. I don't know if that was a Triple H's
Mhm.
acknowledgement that it is in fact a different regime that, I mean, it was Vince McMahon's office that Naomi and Sasha Banks charged out of on that day
And
back in
left there
May.
and left their belts on John Laurinaitis's desk.
Yeah. And quite a bit has changed as our opening bell segment showed you. So I think it was really classy, honestly, to have the announcers talk about her time away and what all she's done, and not make it sound as if, oh, now that you're back here, now you're back to the big time. Like, you went and did big things while you were away too. And we're not going to just brush those off to the side.
And honestly, it did a little bit of table setting for one of the entrants just a few entrants later too. When we're talking about Naomi's time as herself, Trinity Fatu, in TNA wrestling, or Impact for the majority of that time before they flipped back to TNA recently.
Well, let's talk about that next one, because what was she, five or something?
I think she was 5. Yeah, she was 5.
I think this was maybe my favorite surprise of the entire night. And that was Jordynne Grace making an appearance in the Royal Rumble. The current TNA Women's Champion, who just a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, defeated Trinity, now Naomi, for that title. She was there with her championship belt too, which was great. Doug, I know for TNA, obviously, what this means for them, because you're, smaller platform. Obviously, it didn't feel like the fans necessarily knew who she was. I know a few years ago in Rumble, like Mickie James had the TNA's championship,
right? But it was Mickie
James. Knew,
yeah.
And I think it was about the time she was getting back in WWE, or they were putting her into the Hall of Fame or something. So there still was a connection there.
Absolutely.
Jordynne Grace has never been on this platform before. And so I imagine to the mainstream wrestling fan that only watches WWE or WWE and AEW, they did not know who Jordynne Grace was. So for TNA to have their name, their championship, and their champion, it makes all the sense in the world. For WWE, Doug, do you think it's just a matter for them of, look, it is a different regime and it's a different set of rules, and AEW isn't the only one that can bring in these multiple federation, the forbidden door, as it were, even though Triple H made fun of that name in the press conference as being silly.
I think so, because he could make fun of it for being silly or whatever, but he's doing the same thing now, and I think we'll start to see this to a larger degree in the WWE, where we acknowledge other promotions, first of all, and there's going to be some cross pollination probably at larger events, but also, oh gosh, doesn't TNA for whatever reason now call their pay-per-views premium live events? I have to wonder if there's something with the two companies now, maybe like an old school ECW WWE partnership. Purely speculation from my part, but just the fact that they now refer to their pay-per-views as premium live events as well. I guess WWE does not have a copyright or trademark on that, but still, come on.
I do know that when I hopped on to TNA's YouTube channel this morning, they had a great retrospective package on the rise of Jordynne Grace and all of her significant matches and moments, which, timing wise, again, they know that people are now searching for Jordynne Grace and TNA and finding her body of work. So for TNA, this was a big coup. And let's just talk about the performance itself. She did not just come in and get tossed to the outside.
So strong.
She was booked
strong. Pun intended. Absolutely. She was booked strong, because she is a strong girl. She was booked strong, and she was booked like a champion, because your champion's not going to go out like a chump. There's no promotion that's going to say, yeah, we're going to, send our champion into another promotion to get beaten, she looked good. She was handled well. The fact
one of my favorite things from the whole Women's Rumble is she enters, she sees her former TNA mate, who she had just beaten a week and a half earlier for the time, and they hug, and immediately from the hug just start laying into one another.
Yes.
To me, that's one of there goes the whole moments part, right? Like, we might not remember the whole 64 or 65 minutes of this. That moment will be remembered as, wasn't that a cool thing that came out of that one year that Jordynne Grace appeared in the Royal Rumble?
Exactly, exactly. Of course, there is somewhere in the back of my head. Then I was wondering, are we going to see Grisham in the men's? Is that a surprise now? Are we going to see that? Do
Ooh,
we
that
get
would
them
have
as a
been cool.
couple? Yeah, we didn't. Spoilers, we didn't get to see that, but it would have been cool.
Doug, I really like the temporary save of Kari saying that like
That was insane. She's like a
insane.
spider.
As she's hanging there, I'm like, that is impressive. But also, there's no way in the world she's going to be able to climb back up out of that position. And
Yes,
she did. She didn't.
she did.
Um,
But it was cool though. It was still cool.
One of those moments that you'll remember. I
Absolutely.
was actually surprised because at that point, Bailey, who I was surprised to see come in at number 3, because
Yep.
when she came in at 3, I thought, oh, that's probably not great for Bailey. I had
Mhm.
expected that there would be some drama between
Yep.
Bailey and the rest of the Damage Control, but the rest of the Damage Control was eliminated without any real interactions that weren't friendly interactions with Bailey, which was a bit of a surprise.
I like the way that played out though, because it kind of keeps this will they, won't they kind of thing going though. Even into now with that bait. Well, I won't get ahead of myself, but it kind of keeps things going.
And, and shout out to Zelina Vega, who always kills the costume game. I mean, there's no
Yes.
one that kills the costume game like Zelina Vega does,
WWE
especially at the
Queen
big
of
events.
Cosplay. Absolutely.
The Queen of
Love that.
Cosplay. Again, you have to at least see her entrance. I did, Doug. I know in our last in our Royal Rumble show from 2 weeks ago, where we were talking about rating the Rumbles through history and why we don't like Battle Royals but like the Royal Rumble, you specifically mentioned how bad you hate the big person spot, where one big person is ganged up on by everyone else, and then the big person and then knocks
Yes.
them all to
And
the side. I had to laugh to myself when it happened in this match, and it happened to be Doug's personal favorite, Nia Jax.
and I said, there it is. Of course, it's her. And there it is. Of course.
Had to
But
laugh to myself.
I do have to think, apparently Tony Khan and Vince aren't the only two that watch the show. I think Triple H watches our show too, because when Jade Cargill actually did show up, she showed up just the way I said she should and eliminated who I said she should.
I
And
mean,
I popped for it. I popped.
I know we're not Nia Jax fans, but she was booked pretty strong in this. She actually, I think,
Mm-hmm.
tied the record for the women's Royal Rumble for most eliminations. And again, we may not like the character, but as far as how they booked the big, giant, strong monster of a character,
Yep.
that's kind of the way you do it. I don't have any problems with
Yeah.
with the way they booked that part. She did look like the monster, which set up, as you
Right.
said, Jade coming in later. Doug, I like let's talk a little bit of production. I have here in my notes chronologically. I really like the addition of the counter in the corner that showed the women who had been in for the longest and the amount
Yes.
of time. That definitely gave a more of a sports-like feel, a more immediacy. Probably the kind of thing that draws some interest into, like, oh, we're into an epic
Right.
encounter at a time when things were probably getting a little slow because you were in that middle lull. I thought that was just a nice touch.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really did like that, because I was trying to remember, have we seen this before? Because
No,
this
that
is
was
cool.
new.
It
I'm
might be
pretty
this.
sure.
Yeah.
I also like that they had the champions watching and they showed the champions watching. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember that before either. With
Right.
both champions not knowing which one is going to be selected, we're watching how things unfolded. And they did that for the men's match too. Really cool.
Very cool. Absolutely. Yeah.
Roxanne Perez made an appearance. I know we
Mm-hmm.
talked about in NXT, probably having a lot of women from NXT because of how many women there are in NXT.
Yeah.
But we didn't get a lot of women from NXT. We got Roxanne for the second straight year. And once again, I think it showed what level of talent there is in NXT, because not only
Mm-hmm.
did she make an impression, Tiffany Stratton, man,
Yes.
you talk about someone who is on a lot of people's radar now. Jordan Grace and Tiffany Stratton probably are the two that gain the most
Mm-hmm.
as far as exposure goes from their participation in the Royal Rumble. Wouldn't
Absolutely.
you say?
Absolutely. I think, from top to bottom, it was very entertaining, but and I'm kind of glad I was wrong about, this not being a typical, and I've seen a little bit of pushback about this, but not your typical Royal Rumble where you got a lot of nostalgia acts, a lot of like,
No,
returns. I really like that we didn't have a bunch of nostalgia acts. Kind of disappointed that there was no AJ Lee, because I really, really just expected that, but or no Michelle McCool, you know, because
so
that's like a standby of every women's rumble, but we didn't get that this year, and I'm glad we didn't. The WWE has enough talent to not need to pad a rumble with nostalgia acts on the men or the females side.
well, while we're on the subject of no, no returns that were huge. I mean, Naomi, obviously, that's a
Sure,
biggie.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
when Naomi is number 2 right out the gate, did you also say Sasha is coming?
I did, but I had read earlier that some WWE officials, and I don't remember if it was Meltzer or somebody else they were talking to, but some WWE source had said, yeah, there's no chance that we're talking to Monet because she is, we're not into contract tampering. So it kind of stopped that early in the day.
Does this, in your mind, I know that the reports for the last month have been that she has been in active negotiations with various promotions,
Right.
but the fact that you don't have her coming in with the person she walked out with and using her at Royal Rumble, is that indication that she is AEW bound?
I definitely think it is. Yeah, definitely think it is because I think that the top two who could actually afford her were WWE and AEW, and I guess the money was better at AEW or whatever Tony promised was better because I, again I don't remember if it was Meltzer or another dirt sheet, but they were talking specifically. The quote was something along the lines of we're not going to be talking to her because we're not into contract tampering from a
Maybe
WWE
Tony,
official.
maybe Tony promised to not crap on her head. Sorry,
It's too soon, dude. Too soon. That's
sorry.
terrible.
I'm sorry.
Terrible. Oh my
Terrible.
god. We're gonna get canceled now.
Doug, Jade
Oh,
Cargill, that's one we got right.
Jade.
We knew
Jade,
that
yeah.
Jade would be, it was the perfect opportunity to break the glass. And this is Jade, it's significant because this is Jade Cargill's debut in a ring for WWE. Was it? I know that there's been some who have been impatient, like let's just get her out there already. But now that it played out the way it did, was it the right move to hold her until Royal Rumble? Because she did come in late, but she had that memorable spot right off. I loved the tension and tease that they did with Bianca and Cargill without
Mhm.
really doing anything, but just the
Yep.
visual.
Mhm.
This sets her up. She was she was there at the end, and I thought she looked. I mean, she held her own. She looked good.
She looked good, but did you notice that after she comes in strong, does her spot with Nia, puts Nia out, and then kind of almost does the road dog thing where she goes over and she's not cuddling on and holding on to the rope, but she's just kind of laying in the corner for a little while. Actually, I was thinking this is a very Goldberg thing to do where they're very much protecting her now. And she's not doing anything, but she doesn't have an opportunity to really screw anything up here either. She came in, she did the things she was supposed to do. I'm sure she's got one more thing to do before she's out. And then what happens after? But what she do in the meantime? Does she, wrestle around with somebody? Or it seemed like Naomi had went over and checked on her, and the two were having a conversation at one point. It's I, I,
She
I
didn't
don't.
eliminate a ton of people the way that
She
Nia
didn't.
Jax eliminated a ton of
No,
people,
no.
but
She
it may
came in.
be in deference to her, in WWE's eyes, still being green. Put
That's
her
what
in
I'm
late.
thinking.
Don't have her do too much. Have her have a couple of memorable spots
Yep.
in and out. You don't want her in there, and no offense to poor Maxine, but I think they might have had Maxine doing more than she was
Yes.
capable of, and that's when things really started to get clunky in the middle of the women's
Yeah.
Royal Rumble. Really, kind of honestly, it kind of messed the momentum up there in the middle parts all the way up until the end, which got strong again. But that middle section's got kind of slow because of the clunkiness. They probably didn't want people remembering that of a very Green Jade Cargill, so they gave her just enough moments to be memorable.
Yes,
And positive.
That's exactly what I'm thinking they did with Cargill, which I think was the right move.
Yeah.
And you don't want to give too much of her away. You just give her that big spot. Let these people who aren't familiar with her, or are wondering what the big deal is, you let them see that, and then you just let her out, get her out of the ring, get her back out to the back. She's had her moment in the sun, and now you build with that.
We should mention that the final entrant, that your number 30, for those who were maybe waiting on a Sasha Banks, it was a returning Liv Morgan who got a nice reaction because Liv was always real nice reaction. So there at the end, as our final three, we had Cargill, Morgan, and Bayley, who again came in at number 3. Yes, she's a member of Damage Control, but the storyline has been obviously pointing for a while, and I think just the goodwill of the original 4 horsewomen, the one that never has got that big singles run. The crowd was so pro Bayley there at the end, even with Cargill in the ring and all. It was obvious who the crowd wanted. It was obvious from the get-go, the moment she walked out, who they wanted. So, Doug, I love the finishing sequence. I thought it was great. I like Morgan, the way that she took Cargill out. Obviously, Cargill had to be considered a possible winner, but it was it was pretty much from about the middle on, when you realize who was and who wasn't showing up, that it was starting to be pretty obvious that Bayley was walking away with this.
Yeah. It really was, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm really happy with the way overall. I mean, it got a little clunky in the middle, but overall, I thought it was a very top to bottom, bell to bell, entertaining.
It
Rumble.
Was entertaining.
It was entertaining. Even even the spot with R-Truth, which I always dislike the comedy wrestling, but I end up going, okay, that wasn't too bad. Maybe I'm just getting old and soft, and with comedy wrestling.
Well, Truth does it pretty well. To be, let's just
the man is a national treasure. We need to protect him at all costs.
Protect him from both Dom and Nick. So.
Yes.
Oh man. Doug, coming out of this, some of the takeaways: Naomi was booked strong, Nia Jax was booked strong, Cargill was booked strong, the NXT women came in and looked strong. You got some storyline advancements, I think, with Cargill and Jax setting something up maybe for Rumble, maybe Cargill and Jax first, and then Cargill and Bianca at Mania, if you wanted to get two things out of this. But Bayley, obviously, storyline wise, is going to be pointed, storyline wise, her goal was to go in, win the Rumble, and to take on Rhea Ripley. We know that that's not the way it's going to go.
No.
But that's great. I think that's going to be a great WrestleMania match. Bayley versus Io Sky, with the crowd so eager for that turn and to be, to cheer face Bayley again. I love it.
And to see those big inflatable flopping things at WrestleMania that we're going to get to see when we see a face Bayley and come back to the hugger.
Come back to the hugger. I thought it was a solid one.
Going to have to be at ringside for WrestleMania 40 just for that.
Who's probably in NXT at this point. Doug, moving on. The next match, we had other matches that weren't Royal Rumble matches. I will say that nothing was offensive, but I don't think when people look back, these will be remembered at all. Fatal 4-Way, we had, and I'm sorry, I know it's Rumble night, and this didn't start till an hour and 40 minutes in the show, but didn't it feel a little weird to see the Universal Championship and Roman Reigns going on second, essentially?
Very much so, when you're like, there's still another title match and another. Yeah, it was just weird, but
it's hard to book around 2 Rumble matches. I get the problem.
It is. I mean, when you have somebody coming in every 90 seconds and you start with 2, it's a lot of time to spend, and then you can't just say, okay, well, everybody's out here, it's over now. You've got to go into your final four or whatever it is. So those Rumble matches take some time. The two matches in between that we had took up some time, I think.
There was, again, it's Roman Reigns in what is essentially the come down match after the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
So it was, again, one of those foregone conclusion kind of matches. It was Roman defending against LA Knight, AJ Styles, and Randy Orton. Corey Graves did that stupid WWE math thing again. I'm like, Corey, you're too good for this. They all do not have a 25% chance.
Nope.
And good for Pat McAfee, who came and basically said that math doesn't make any sense. I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Pat. Yeah.
Thank you for the guy who's not programmed and says things that maybe he shouldn't. Like later on when he says something reminded him of the Hardys, and then things got real quiet. So I don't know if you noticed that or not.
Oh, Pat.
LA Knight looked strong, I thought, in this. He got the superplex. That spot always looks fantastic. Impressive styles clash that we saw on Roman Reigns. That's a big dude to styles clash. Some fun RKO stuff. We had a bit of an RKO party there for a bit. So this was a fun match.
Yeah.
It kind of started out, to me, Doug, it started out slow a little bit, but I think that was probably the come down part coming out of the women's match. And at the end, when it started to pick up speed, you got a little bit of a "this is awesome" chant. Probably not a 5-star or anything. They weren't trying to steal the show, but for its placement on the card, I thought it entertained and had the outcome that we all expected.
Oh yeah, we were guaranteed, bloodline interference and Reigns walking away with the title. We got some bloodline interference and Reigns remaining our universal trouble, head of the table.
It was just me, or, obviously people are still real excited. Randy Orton has returned after a long absence. LA Knight is just so over. It's crazy. People love AJ because he's AJ. I know he took the pin here. Maybe that's why I'm thinking it, but did he not seem the odd man out in this? It started to come to me like he's having no big AJ kind of spots in this, and it just looks like he's out there to take the pinfall, which is
that's exactly what I was thinking. I honestly thought it would be LA Knight to take the pin. I'm glad they made LA look strong, but AJ I think was in this match just to take the pin. He got built into this program with that in mind. We need somebody. Hey, AJ put on like 48 pounds worth of muscle when he was gone for like a week. Let's, he's looking big and buff. Let's let him take the pin. I don't know how he inflated like that, but
let's see what they do with the character after this pay-per-view. See where they go with him. Coming up next on the card, it was U.S. champion Logan Paul taking on Kevin Owens. The KO injured hand thing became the sort of the through line of this match with Paul working on it. Obviously Paul does not work like a celebrity at this point. He shouldn't even be treated like a newcomer. He's been around a couple of years now. And so, you should expect he's going to raise his game up. There's times where you can still tell that he doesn't do this on a week-to-week basis, but that's why they usually have him working with someone who can carry him. And I do believe that it was obvious that KO was carrying him. Some of the Paul spots, I think it's probably time to maybe put him at the Performance Center a little bit to vary his game, but he never embarrasses himself out there. I will say that.
So, the kid is such a natural athlete. It is really insane. And, his mic skills and the understanding of the psychology and how to work a crowd is definitely just baked into this kid. Honestly, I thought this match for what it was perfect. You had babyface, you had heel, your babyface is more of like the stone cold, like impulsive babyface who's going to do something at the end that ends up costing him. It was just perfect the way it came together. It's even the ending.
So before we get to the ending, the only notes I had was I loved the frogs. KO has a great looking frog splash. It looked like he got extra height last night for some reason. Looks great. But let's talk of that brass knuckles spot. If this was a blow off match, I would be, or if this was my main event, or even if it was the main event of Raw, I would probably be like, oh, that's a cop out. But I think you had the right words for what it is, for what this
Right.
was.
Right.
This was not the main event. This was a continuation of the storyline. There was some shenanigans, for those who didn't see it, with the the entourage of Logan Paul introduced the brass knuckles. KO got the brass knuckles and used them, which kind of subverts the whole face. Like KO is more opportunistic, not a straight ahead face, and so it's not that surprising that he used them. What it was surprising, it was the face that got caught with them, and they went for the DQ. I'm fine for it too, because this wasn't a main event. This wasn't the match that people bought the pay-per-view for.
Right.
And because of that, I think it did what it was supposed to do, and that's continued the story.
Absolutely. It didn't finish the story.
But it did not.
But it does continue the story, which I think is, because I was like, oh, Kevin and I are both right. KO won, but Logan Paul actually won. It's like that we both were right on this one.
Yeah.
But this will take this on to onto WrestleMania now, because I
do you
really
think that's where it goes? I know that
really
we have a spot in between. Do you think that this is a put it down, at least in pencil right now, that Logan Paul KO at WrestleMania?
If not Logan Paul and KO at WrestleMania, Logan Paul will still have that belt at WrestleMania, because I think there's more value for outside wrestling fans or casual wrestling fans, or Logan Paul. What is this? 30 million like YouTube subscribers.
Have a celebrity at WrestleMania with the championship.
Yeah, to put more eyes on that. I would love to see Bad Bunny v Logan Paul. It's what I would love to see as a celebrity match. But it's
fantasy booking. We never watched the show, so Trips, get on it.
Get on that, man.
We go to our main event, Doug. Men's Royal Rumble match. Interesting, I guess I will say, just in the setup, before we get into like the who was out first and the moments, but in the setup and this throughout the evening, they referred repeatedly to CM Punk having walked out of the company I like being disgruntled
10 years ago.
Yeah, I like that they kept calling attention to it. I can't say I wasn't surprised, especially with the fact that they kept leaning on the disgruntled part and that he walked out. You would think, for the sake of the relationship, that that was a touchy way of putting it, but I'm sure that with all the baggage that Punk has accumulated since then, that probably didn't bother him at all. To basically be portrayed as he took his ball and went home, which is what he did.
Yeah.
And the truth's the truth. Number 1 and 2, Doug, we had Jey Uso as the number 1 draw, and what are the odds, man? Jimmy at number 2.
Yeet and no yeet. Which did I miss something that I thought he couldn't use yeet because there's a West Virginia wrestler that trademarked that. Did they cut a deal with this guy? Did I miss that?
I did not know that. I did not know that.
Because there's a West Virginia wrestler that has yeet trademarked or something like that. So
can you trademark yeet? I thought you. I mean,
well, maybe that's what the good WWE lawyers. I don't know.
They're busy right now, Doug. If you've not heard, I'm sorry. Very, very busy. First big return.
Enjoy our last show, everybody.
We talked about it. You called it. The world was waiting on it. Andrade had his return to WWE, first time in 3.5 years. When they said that, I was actually surprised. I'm like, had it been 3.5 years? But yeah, apparently 3.5 years. He got a good reaction. I would say maybe not a Naomi level reaction,
right?
But maybe it's end of the night and crowd was tired, or maybe it's just, honestly, Andrade never got going on the main roster. Naomi was a main roster stalwart for years. And I think that there's a bigger opportunity lying ahead with Andrade, and it was good to see him back.
Well, there absolutely is. Yeah, I mean, Andrade is such an amazing wrestler, so it's good to see him back. It's good to see what they'll do with him. And I kind of like the Escobar spot later on when Escobar comes out and he's like, "Hey, we're Lucha, we're gonna
No. You do.
Nope.
No, that was good. That was really good. Carmelo Hayes, obviously in repping NXT, but at this point,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're just trying to get past next week's NXT Vengeance Day or what. But is
Right.
it safe to say that Carmelo Hayes is as much a SmackDown wrestler as he is
I do believe
NXT? Don't you
so.
think that he's probably moving to the main roster here shortly?
Yes. Yeah,
Do the Dragon
I
Lee
see the
thing.
yeah, absolutely. I see that happening soon.
And he's always impressive. So, I mean, wherever Carmelo Hayes goes, he's going to be must watch. But he looked good in the Rumble. Technically, still representing NXT when we talked about NXT, folks. Tom and Nick Mysterio. No, Dominic got one of the biggest heel reactions of the night, just walking out, which was just fantastic. That he didn't have to do a thing to get that
But
reaction.
walk. Just show
walk,
up and walk to the
just,
ring.
Carlito got his apple spot in and a measure of revenge there on Escobar, which was, again, one of those storyline kind of things. And then, we got when Cody entered midway, and when we got a really cool elimination with the crossroads on the apron that sent Nakamura to the outside. I thought that looked really, really good. One of the cooler eliminations of the night. Doug admitted that. Did you actually admit that?
Yeah, it did look really cool. Yeah, Cody's a good worker. I can't let my personal feelings influence my journalistic integrity, Kevin.
That's very big of you. I appreciate that. For the sake of the show, on what is our last show, as you pointed out. No, it's not the last show. Tune in next week.
We'll be here.
Gunther comes in looking like he just, where he left off last year. I mean, he just came in and immediately started wailing on guys. And then finally, the last of the NXT, we got Carmelo in, and I thought that might be all we have for NXT representation. But finally, we got Braun Breaker in a big way in a Royal Rumble. He had a nice moment, too, with Gunther, and he came in just explosive, like just spears. And then I read afterwards that apparently he just did all the Brock Lesnar spots because Brock Lesnar was intended to be there. But again, as we mentioned earlier in the show, there was a UFC champion named as part of that lawsuit. So you can do the math on that one.
So, because I was thinking the same thing. It's like, this is great. I'm thinking while he's doing it, it's like, oh, he is doing all the Lesnar stuff. This is great. They've passed the torch here. And then I'm thinking, wait a minute. Is this legit a push for him? Is this my fantasy booking coming through? And then to start reading later that, oh no, it's the exact same spots, the exact same people that Lesnar was going to eliminate in the exact same order. It was Lesnar's. He was the Brock Lesnar.
But if you wanted to look like the company man who comes in without, without practicing, without, mentally going through how this is going to go in front of a stadium-sized crowd, you put a kid who you've kept at NXT too long, and you put him in a situation where he has to fill in for a legendary performer doing the exact same move. Could he have come across looking any more ready than he did?
No. And man, you said it earlier, explosive. This kid is so explosive.
Like he's ready to go, man. He's ready to go.
He really is, man. I mean, I thought he
ready to go.
Oh, I was just saying he looked great. Yeah.
Returns that Doug thought looked great. We got the return of Omos, which Doug could not stop texting me about during the event. I'm like, I get it, Doug. You're excited.
He was just eliminated too soon, Kevin.
I know. Very upset. Pat McAfee, who was returned, a surprise at the announce desk, also was a surprise entrant who immediately eliminated himself when he looked at the 7 foot tall Omos, which, for the comedy spot, which again, we mentioned and detailed a couple of episodes ago, you have a long hour to fill. So you got to fill with drama and comedy. And that was actually for a comedy spot. I'm like, all right, I can go with that.
I'll talk about McAfee's spot later because I think McAfee has proven that he is a talent in the ring. Not, WWE celebrities are so much better than they were when we were younger. There's no Drew Carey stumbling around out there anymore. We've got Logan Paul's, Bad Bunnies, and Pat McAfee's. if they were just going to do that with McAfee, I feel that they should have given that spot to somebody else, because we had a healthy dose of comedy with R-Truth when he finally got to the right Rumble, which was just beautiful. So
Well,
I could have done without McAfee.
so let's talk about how R-Truth being good at what his role in the company is at this point.
Indeed.
Instant heat for Damian Priest coming in when he eliminated R-Truth. I mean, the place went nuts on Priest, because that's how well liked R-Truth is, even though no one thought at all he was going to be around near the end. People just like him so much that Priest gets heat just from being the guy who does the elimination.
And even the heat that Dom gets when he stops somebody else from or is it Miz that's going to take out R-Truth or something like that? Or anyway, R-Truth is in there with Dom, so Dom's all alone, but R-Truth thinks he's in Judgment Day, so he's like, no, we're Judgment Day, we're Judgment
Day. Yeah, that was. I mean, it's good stuff.
And the hot tag from R-Truth is in a tag team match, standing there trying to get Dom to tag so he can enter the Rumble. That is a great comedy spot,
Yeah.
That should have been there. The
McAfee
thing, yeah, but good stuff, man. That was good stuff.
So we get to number 30 and we get a surprise return, and maybe not so surprised. I did call it that it was about time for Sammy. We get Sammy. No one's going to boo Sammy. So this wasn't a Rey Mysterio moment when he's number 30 and people want, Daniel Bryan at the time. But to me, I felt like a little bit of the air come out of the crowd, even though they didn't boo Sammy. Do you think that folks were so certain The Rock was going to make an appearance, which obviously, spoiler at this point, no, he does not. And number 30 was Sammy. Do you think that kind of took the wind out of the sails of the Tampa crowd?
I think to some degree it did, because if you notice, before 30 hit, I think it was maybe somewhere around 28, a mild. I mean, we're talking about a stadium full of 40,000 people, but nevertheless, it was a mild Rocky chant starts.
I didn't hear it,
it's one of those, it has one of those start stop things going on with it. Like, for whatever reason, it couldn't really get going, but it would start up and then die down, start up and die down, but never got to a straight up Rocky chant. So there was at least a portion of that live crowd that had the same expectations that, I did anyway.
Same. But, I mean, I predicted that Rock would enter and win.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, especially since from the first announcement at the beginning of the show when they said, "Hey, Women's Royal Rumble is first. Here we go." Yeah.
So you'd think that a lot of the audience obviously felt the same way, and there was that disappointment. They didn't take it out on Sammy, thank goodness. But you could feel it. You could feel the air leave the building. I will say that the men that were left there at the end worked hard to bring the crowd back around. Final four. I will say this. I know I predicted The Rock to win. I predicted him to be in the final four. But outside The Rock, put Drew in his spot. I got the other three right.
Yeah.
It was Gunther, Drew McIntyre, Cody Rhodes, and CM Punk. It should be noted that this was for as much as he's been on TV, this was actually the first in-ring action CM Punk has seen on television since his return. So that in and of itself is notable. Doug, it comes down in the end to, and I was honestly at that point when it was down to the final three, once Drew got dumped, I'm totally like, come on, Gunther. I really wanted to see Gunther, maybe Seth, which I think is still down the road. I hate it for Gunther, but it does make sense in many ways that it was down to Cody and to Punk. They had a little bit of a mini match when it was the two of them. I mean, they went another 5 minutes, which I think was real helpful in bringing the crowd back around, because they were deflated. And then you had two old school pros that had been at it for a long time, pull the crowd back into things with a lot of dramatic spots. In the end, Doug, it was not the Second City Saint, but the second time around, 2 years in a row. I mean, in the early years of the Royal Rumble, in the first 10, 15 years, it happened 3 times with Hogan, HBK, and Stone Cold. going back to back. Those three men did it, and then didn't happen for 26 years until Cody did it this year, and wasted no time with his
Oh
intentions.
yeah, right. Just straight up calling him out. As soon as we heard Sammy's music when number 30 hit, I turned to my son and say, "Okay, Rock's not coming. The Homelander guy is winning tonight." So, of course, he was like, "Oh no, you don't know that." I'm like, "Yeah, no, I know that. I know that. Cody's winning now." But it makes sense as much as I don't care for Cody. It makes sense that this, and it goes a long way to establishing Cody as something special too by saying, hey, this is the second time in a row that Cody's won back-to-back Royal Rumbles. That hasn't been done in 20 plus years. Other greats, Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin have done this before. No other person has done this before. Now, this 20-year span, Cody's done this. Cody's taken out Lesnar. Cody has continued they've continued to salt and pepper Cody's story with all these things that line him up to be the one who is the King Slayer, the tribal chief slayer, whatever you want to call him. Actually, Seth Rollins was the King Slayer, wasn't he? Yeah. But
So
you know,
I think
it's
I
booked
misspoke
right.
earlier when I said that I had predicted Rock to win. I predicted that if Rock showed up, he actually wasn't going to win. They'd find a different way to get there. I think I might have actually predicted that Cody would walk away and win. I personally like the way that instead of the who is he going to choose, like
Oh yeah,
storyline
no
wise,
question,
it's pretty
no question.
obvious who he should choose. So I'm fine they didn't tease it out for a big Raw announcement tomorrow night or anything. Like immediately, that's what if this was a real legit
Right?
sport, that's exactly what would happen. Is like I went through all of this and I am coming back for you. That part of
Exactly.
it I liked a lot. I know you're not a huge Cody fan, but there was drama in the ending. I thought that maybe it didn't have the same level of surprises that there was no one that was booked like Nia to look like the monster or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Andrade didn't have them, bell to bell like Naomi almost did. Right. So I thought that coming out of this, Gunther looked strong for a second straight year. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he needs to get to that next level, but they keep having him right on the cusp of showing that, look, he is in league with these level of folks. He had that moment, though, where perhaps him and Drew might have something that gets going before Mania, which I think would be excellent, honestly, to see that. I'm fine for that. That's a storyline coming out of this. I think a storyline coming out of this has to be Braun Breaker making a save of WWE and looking so good while doing so that good. Maybe that it gets him finally permanently called up to the level that honestly he has been at for some time.
Absolutely. I just wish they'd call the kid a Steiner. Just call him what he is. I hate that name.
But in general, for me, I think what really made this Rumble work is the ending. If it hadn't been for the ending, I think it might have been one of those forgettable Rumbles. Was fine, but I think that it really helped to have this year so many believable and legitimate contenders that it was not a foregone conclusion as to who would show up and who could win. It makes sense with all the returns we've seen and the star power in there that a Cody and a CM Punk, either one could have won this, and storyline wise could have gone on to headline WrestleMania, and everyone would have been, yeah, okay, I see that. So I think that helped to solidify that ending as saving the whole match.
And I really got to say too, what Punk did at the end too really went even more to put Cody over when it's like, okay, Punk's got this now. He's like, I didn't do all this, just to lose to Dusty's kid. Then he loses to Dusty's kid. Well, the facial expressions and everything is like, okay, he's, for whatever kind of human being he is, he is actually good at his job.
So I did have it in my notes that it is his first in-ring action with WWE in a decade. Then on TV, he got a great reaction. Mm-hmm. At the end, when the fans became torn, it did not take even that obvious heel move there. It did not take very long though for fans to let it be known that they were for Rhodes. Punk was starting to get the boos before he had even done anything that would warrant those boos. And I don't know if that's part of we know who in real life is the good guy, who in real life is maybe not the good guy.
Right.
But it definitely come out in that crowd. If you're going to make us choose between two of the biggest faces in the company right now, we're choosing Cody Rhodes.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
that's
wouldn't.
hard
I
to
wouldn't choose Punk either, but
it's hard to deny. I mean, it is hard, I imagine, for WWE executives to deny.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
So before we hit our big finish, I got to ask then, if that is the case, did everything I have read is that we are still getting Reigns. It is believed that we're still getting Reigns and Rock. What's not so certain is if it will be at WrestleMania, that they might not, or at least WrestleMania 40. So for all the buzz that the Rock made when he came back and wanted to be the head of the table, that may not be happening in April now, it would seem. Do you think they still get there for WrestleMania 40, or do you think that gets teased out into something else and that this really is a Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns rematch that we're looking at?
I think in order to now finish Cody's story, I mean, he's the poster boy for like the new video game and everything. Yeah, Cody does have to finish his story at WrestleMania. If they weren't going to do that, Cody would not have won the Rumble last night. They would have had Rock come in, upset Cody, and then Cody's story would have been finished later on. So I think Cody has to finish the story now at WrestleMania. I think we see Reigns and Cody at WrestleMania, and I don't know where we stick in Rock now, unless there's a Saudi show, because I think a Saudi show with The Rock on it could be a lot of money, because Rock now has a financial responsibility to this company that he sits on the board of directors with, and is going to have to, sure, he'd love to headline WrestleMania with Roman Reigns, but now he has to look at the bigger picture. This is what I would like to do, but this is what's going to be money, and where's that money? Is it a WrestleMania 40 match with Roman, or is it in a Saudi show later this year with Roman? Where is that? And I
Where
think
is that?
that's going to drive a lot of the creative decisions with The Rock at this point now.
And we do have one more pay-per-view between now and Mania. We are still 69 days away. A lot can change. Even when I thought The Rock was showing up, I didn't say he would win. I thought he would lose, and they'd find another way to get there. They still could get there for Mania. I wouldn't count it out, but it does look right now like it's going to be the Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns rematch. We will see. Doug, with that, we got Rumble in the books. Let's talk our big finish. Botch of the week.
Botch of the week. I mentioned it earlier. So, for me, and let me preface this with, I really do like McAfee. He won me a long time ago when he and his squad went up against the Undisputed Era on a NXT pay-per-view, and, just shut me up about, what an actual, celebrity, wrestler can do. And since then, WWE has really turned out with their celebrity wrestlers. But I really think this spot with McAfee, and it's on my phone. I didn't write them down tonight, but they're on my notes for the night show.
Nice.
But McAfee, that was a waste. You just stuck another NXT kid in there. R-Truth had the comedy well under control. McAfee coming in, going out, and just being done with it. Unnecessary. And, if you're gonna do something, let McAfee jump in there and do a crossbody, let Almost catch him and toss him out. Then at least do that. But it was a waste. And I'm just calling that a botch. And, I really can't call a lot out in this show, because I like to say, when we're doing our pay-per-view reviews, I want to stay within the show. And overall, I think it was a great show. I think a solid B is absolute. But that could have been done better. They could have had another NXT kid in there, showcase somebody else in those, 2 minutes that took place.
So I'm going to spoil things here by saying that I am for all three of my big finish items here, I am outside of the Royal Rumble show. And that's starting with number one, and that's the botch of the week. And that botch is what, in my mind, tempted very much to overshadow not just the Royal Rumble, but everything else.
Everything.
And Vince McMahon, my botch of the week. The man who built professional wrestling is also the man who has torn down any shred of what legacy he had left. I know these are allegations. We got a judicial process to go through. I'm not here to talk guilt or innocence. I'm talking about the fact that this is just the latest in what has been decades of accusations against the man and everything catching up to him in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And yet, even when he's sidelined by his company, and listed as a liability on their balance sheets to future profitability and just respect within the industry and potential to make deals and all. And here he is on what should have been the biggest week at WWE headquarters that you can imagine, the popping of the champagne corks after the Netflix deal and all that. And then you got Vince McMahon and the lawsuit. My botch of the week, it's just an ugly, dark cloud over all of wrestling. And I know, we're here to have fun and talk about something that's fun. And we had some jokes at Vince's expense and things, but there's nothing funny about this at all. And we'll see how it plays out in courts, but definitely a distraction to me and the botch of the week.
Oh, definitely a distraction to the entire world of wrestling. And, there's a lot to be celebrated this week. And I guess, from a certain point of view, Vince resigning from the WWE could be celebrated as well, because, I say, we're not here to, we're not here to deal with allegations. There are allegations. Once this is resolved legally, we can cover it then and discuss it. But the allegations are very, very disturbing.
Very.
I mean, yeah, totally a botch.
Performance of the week, Doug. We'll go positive now.
Performance of the week. Who do I have? I've got Bailey for my performer of the week, just because it's time. It's time.
It is. Yeah.
It's
Could you believe it when they said that Bailey has never had a singles match at WrestleMania? Did that not blow your mind?
It did. It did. It's time. And Bailey is such a good heel. She's such a great baby face, man.
And she's been heel for a while, so it's time there too.
I'm really looking forward to seeing a babyface Bailey at WrestleMania, bumping heads with Io Sky. What do they call her now? The Genius of Sky. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
So for my performance of the week, I have CM Punk and Cody Rhodes.
Okay.
And not for the ending of Royal Rumble, though they did, I believe, save the Royal Rumble men's match from being mediocre to being really good because of the work they did at the end. That's not why they're my performers of the week. It is for that promo that the two of them gave on Raw. And again, we have said a lot of things about CM Punk, and I stand by the negatives we said. But Doug, you said it not that long ago that devil his due when he is focused and on task. There's a reason that there's a lot of loyal CM Punk fans out there. When he's contained, can do great work. And the second that he looked at Cody Rhodes and said, "What I want to talk about is your father," I knew we were going someplace good. And Cody is great in the part he played in that too. It was just an exchange that I don't go. There's so much wrestling on. I don't go and rewatch things very often. I went back and rewatched that promo because of just how good both men were in it. And then, of course, if you want to just talk about performers of the week, they topped that off by being the final two guys in the Royal Rumble, and Cody being the first in 26 years to go back to back in Royal Rumble with wins and lost the tooth while doing so, by the way.
Oh, really?
He did. Yeah. Yep. Lost it by doing so. So, performance of the week, CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. How about your match, Doug?
So my match, I touched on it a little bit earlier because I do think it was just a perfectly laid out match. And, I stay confined to our pay-per-views when we do these. But I think that KO Logan Paul thing, and I never dreamed I would be such a Logan Paul fanboy, but I thought that was just booked perfectly. Their opposing styles just meshed oddly so well together. KO is a beast of a wrestler, such a great wrestler. Logan Paul is an insane athlete and a great heel. He has such an understanding of the business. I think it all just came together perfectly, especially the ending, because like I said before, for what it was a perfect match in my mind. So, I'm calling that my match of the week. So
I mean, that's news right there in and of itself. Doug picking a Royal Rumble match that wasn't either of the Rumbles, and a match that didn't have a clean finish. That's how much he liked what the work they did there. Respect. For me, I honestly, I'm going outside the bounds of Royal Rumble and outside the bounds of where I normally go. It wasn't even a match that took place this week. I saw it this week, but the best match I saw this week was actually from a week and a half ago.
okay.
And they have a higher profile now. So go watch on their YouTube channel. They had the whole match up for free. TNA had Will Ospreay against the walking weapon, Josh Alexander. That match was absolutely phenomenal. I had, just frank here. I watch as much wrestling as I possibly can. I don't have access to TNA in my cable package. I subscribe to enough streaming services. I'm not going to pay extra to watch even more wrestling when my plate's already full. If I had access to TNA product, I would watch it regularly. I had heard really good things about what Scott D'Amore was doing in TNA, and I've been watching some of their stuff on their YouTube channel and agree that what I am seeing is almost a rebirth of the organization. It looks, it sounds good. The athleticism's there. There's a passion there. These kids look hungry. Obviously, we know what Ospreay can do. Those who don't know Josh Alexander, he's probably one of the best kept secrets who have not been on one of the major promotions yet. But definitely go watch Will Ospreay and Josh Alexander from last week's Impact. This week's Impact had Kazuchika Okada. That full match is on TNA's YouTube channel as well. So follow your Jordan Grace curiosities over to their content. Maybe that was not the way I should have worded that.
I think she has another website for that, Kevin.
But definitely go check that match out. Highly recommend it.
Wow. What a week in wrestling.
What a week in wrestling. We know we went long, fans, but so did the week in wrestling. They did it to us.
Not our fault. We just report the wrestling.
So the next couple of weeks, we have 2 weeks in a row. We have special dates and times. As you can see at the bottom of our screen, we will be on next Sunday. As always, we will be on an hour earlier, though, with our show about fixing AEW. We're on an hour earlier, so we do not interfere with the NXT pay-per-view because we're going to make Doug start watching NXT, and this is his chance if we're off the air and make him go watch Vengeance Day.
This is true. I hear it's very black and gold-ish, so I should give it a try again.
But giving it a try again is going to be AEW if they take our advice on how to turn this ship around. And that's next week on the Two Bros Wrestling Show. We're going to fix AEW for Tony Khan.
We're going to fix it for you, Tony. Just pay attention.
With that, fans, thanks for tuning in.
Good night, everybody. Go watch some wrestling.
See you next week.